Hi, and welcome to EFL Talks. And here today with a new friend I've made, Roy Andersen. And Roy is an author. He's got 7 books out now. And as he puts it, he's spent 30 years learning about education and how education works. And he's going to explain it all to you in 10 minutes. So, Roy, thanks for being here.
Thank you, Rob. This is I'm very grateful to you. Okay, school systems are different around the world as each is based on a different culture. However, the basic way in which all schools work is the same. School relies upon the parents to prepare their children for school according to their educational background, knowledge, and sense of awareness for learning. So while we might think that all children begin day one equally, this is very far from the truth. Risley and Hart, for instance, in 1995, showed how kids from better educated parents know 30 million words more by the age of 4 than children raised by lesser educated parents. This means that the children with a greater vocabulary will better relate to the movement of information in school and adapt faster to the rules of learning. Perry, way back in 1968, explained that the purpose of school is to produce dualistic thinkers, yes or no, while the university develops reasoning to the evaluist learner to consider different angles and questions to be able to understand information from different perspectives. So school categorizes children on the skills largely raised by their home background, to be either managers for society and work, or the worker citizen. This basic concept of school has not changed since the 19th century. Today, education has 2 problems. Parents criticize education when they worry about the grades their children will get and so the work opportunities for them. Employers complain that school leavers are little able to adapt easily to the job tasks they give them. Education seeks to solve this by causing schools to compete against each other, with the reasoning that each will teach better. But all that really happens is that each school causes its students to focus only on passing examinations. So children don't really learn the value of their subjects and do not develop reasoning skills through this. They learn exam techniques and are drilled on past exam papers. But basically, we are not developing the level of reason in the upcoming generation that they will need in the highly dominated artificial world they will live and work in. So to try to help educationalists, teachers and parents, because it's really the parents behind education that control the whole thing, I've written a number of books which I'd like to introduce to you very quickly. You can see The Illusion of Education. This book explains how school really works and why school does not teach reasoning skills from day one. If it did, all children could learn better and the social differences they were raised in would be more equalized. To understand what intelligence is, I then wrote The Hidden Secrets of Intelligence. This book really explains why intelligence is not genetically inherited. I've spent many years on this with studying genetics and really understand a different concept to what we think intelligence comes from. And then I wrote the third book, The Brain Environmental Complex. This is a new understanding to what intelligence is and how it develops through emotion and language. I basically explain how intelligence begins in the 30th week of gestation inside the mother and how it develops afterwards through emotion and language. We might basically understand that how calm we are and how stable we feel in an environment, so we are more sensitive to understand information. We interrogate, we process, and we build an understanding of how to relate to information built upon how emotionally we feel. And then this comes to the language that we are taught, the words and the meanings, how we understand other people and how we can express ourselves. And then my 4th book, Mediation, Crafting the Intelligence of the Child in Home and School. It's a book with hands-on examples of how parents can raise intelligence in their child and how teachers can raise performance in their students. My next book, Preparing a New World Education. This really examines the reality of the world our children will live in. I talk a great deal here about the development of nanotechnology and how this can change the the global identity of work and the social structures that our children will have to contend with. So we need a new way to teach, because we've got to reach the heart and the minds of children. And the way that we process them in school doesn't really do this. And I've devised a new way of teaching I'll mention in a moment. But also we need new subjects for the curriculum, because the problems that our children will encounter are going to be more emotionally based. We need to teach them more social skills, anthropology, and a greater understanding of the real world they will live in. So how a new school concept can work and why we must try is really what this book and all the books I've written is about. Then I wanted to write a fun book. I mean, those books took me over 25 years really to write. This book I wrote in about 2 months. It was fun to write, and a lot of people enjoy reading it. I've been told by numerous teachers that this is a book that really should be handled by every training institution. It's a hands-on example, chapter by chapter. And there's now a school in Pakistan where the principal is encouraging their teachers to read each chapter together and to discuss the value of each chapter and how they can make applications into the way they work. And then, of course, really, how can we really help kids to learn better? So I wrote this book, 5 Proven Ways that really get to the heart of performance. And here I explain in simple terms the value of emotion, of language, of awareness, motivation, and presentation. Very few students really understand the problem they've got is how they present their mind to the people who are judging them. And I explain how to do that. Then what kind of problems do our children have in school? Well, there are 2 basic problems that are very serious globally. One is bullying, and the other is game addiction. When I was a child, if I was confronted with a bully that I couldn't handle, I could kind of get home quickly and be safe. That's not the same today. Children today are invaded in their own privacy. In the bed, before they go to sleep, a bully can text them with all kinds of vile information that really gets to kids today, and so many are taking their own lives because of this. It's really very sad. Then, of course, there's game addiction. Children are more self-absorbed and masochistic than ever before. We know that there was MRI scans done on children. They found that children who play 10 hours of games a day have less developed frontal lobar regions for reasoning skills than children who play 2 hours a day. And these skills are causing children to be more aggressive. It's raising their dopamine levels. They're more aggressive in their nature, and this reflects on why they're bullying and they are self-absorbed. And we've really got to find a way to help our children to be the kind of socially self-responsible citizens that we want to run our world in the future, their world and their children's world. So it all comes down to how we can really teach children. And I've devised this Andersen attitude method of teaching, where the attitude of the teacher devises the attitude of the students, and this is reflected in the parents, and it's a whole circle of interaction based on gratitude, kindness, and sharing time and feelings. We can see here how I like to try to create a classroom so that the teacher can move around quickly. And this really avoids kids using phones under the tables, because the teacher has an eye-to-eye contact very easily with children. I mean, this is not new, but there are so many schools and universities, whatever, that still have these rows of desks where you can see that the students further back, they can't really see and they can't really hear, as well as the students in the front. And so there are 4 key points about the way that I try to teach. One is to begin with a story. We all like stories. Stories are very important to how we can associate the meaning of the context. So, for example, if I'm going to talk about environmental science, global warming, of course, then I would begin by explaining that as a child who enjoys fish, and his mother tells him fish is very, very good for him, and it's very good for calcium, and he enjoys it, and he enjoys looking forward to this. Suddenly then there's no fish, and he doesn't understand why. And then we can explain that the next 30 years there may not be summer ice in the Arctic, and this means that there will be no, summer ice is so thin that the heat can penetrate through it and algae can form underneath, and then arthropods feed on the algae and the small fish on this and bigger fish, and then there's the food chain. There's no summer ice, there's very little fish for little Johnny at home. And then the big problem is that teachers are under so much pressure to move from one lesson to another lesson and to write reports about it, that they forget that they leave the learning up to the students. We can't do that. We can't trust the students to know previous lessons. We have to find ways to bring parts of a previous lesson into the current lesson so that learning is always alive. So if I'm teaching lesson 4, I'll bring in contents of lesson 1 and lesson 3. If I'm teaching lesson 9, I'll bring in contents of 2 and 4 and 7, so on like this. A test to stimulate learning. This is a high feedback factor. And I find that homework is not necessary. And when kids know there's no homework, they will put more interest into the lessons they're involved with. And that's really what I try to do. I try to travel around to meet teachers and parents where I can and explain what I've tried to explain to you in a very compacted few minutes.
Great. Well, Roy, that was wonderful, and I appreciate you taking the time out and sharing with us. I really recommend taking a look at the books.